Hello, my name is Myra, and for today's video, I want to go ahead and talk about some of my favorite Mafia romances and give you some recommendations if you're trying to either get started with Mafia romance books or if you're looking for some more recommendations after the ones that you've already read. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the OG, and I do have my tablet here because my memory is kind of wonky sometimes. So Cora Riley is the OG for me, just because that's basically where I started with Mafia, and I specifically started with her Born in Blood series. So this is a Chicago syndicate, and you basically get arranged marriage in this series. You get second chance, enemies to lovers, forbidden bodyguard romance, and there is, I believe, 6 books in the series. I might be wrong, but I did read every single one of them. My favorite is Born in Blood and Bound by Honor. My God, Born in Blood. Born in Blood is the name of the series. Bound by Honor and Bound by Hatred. Those are my 2 favorite in that series. Now, you also have the Kimura Chronicles by Cora Riley. Now, this is arranged marriage, captor captive, and you have the Vegas Mafia. So the Vegas and the Chicago Mafia are their own series, but there is crossover in them. So I would definitely recommend reading the Born in Blood series first and then going into the Kimura Chronicles. Now, Kimura Chronicles, there's like about 6 or 7 books. For that one, my favorite by far is Twisted Pride. And that is the book for Reno and Serafina. Serafina is from, like, she's related to one of the guys from the Chicago Mafia, and Reno is like the head of the Vegas Mafia, and he is crazy, like crazy when it comes to like just like crime and the type of capo and like boss that he is. I mean, he gives 0 Fs, and he is just, it's a lot. But again, Cora Riley, you can't go wrong with her books. Now, the other one that I would definitely recommend is Sophie Lark. Sophie Lark, I love her books. I love her Mafia books, and I've read a lot of her series already. I started off with the Brutal Birthright series, and in this one, you get arranged marriage, captor captive, friends to lovers / like redeemed playboy, second chance. You also get Grumpy Sunshine, but she's the grumpy one and he's the sunshine. And you also get enemies to lovers. And this one, it is the Irish mob and the Italian mafia. So it starts off with the first book being an arranged marriage between the Irish mob and the Italian mafia, and then it just goes from there. I would start off with Brutal Birthright, and then I would go into Kingmakers. Now, Kingmakers is actually the series from the children from the Brutal Birthright series. So again, read Brutal Birthright and then go into Kingmakers. Now, I loved Kingmakers, and I didn't think I would like it as much because Kingmakers is basically the book, again, from their kids, but they're not little kids, like they're in college, but it's a mafia college, and it's for mafia kids from all over the world. And it's this college where basically it's like the rules from the outside world don't apply. There is no such thing as like getting away with anything there. And I loved it. It's almost like a lot of people have compared it to like Harry Potter, but make it mafia. Now, I didn't read the Harry Potter books. I have watched the movies, but it is basically like that. Like they're secluded from everywhere else, and they're just there at that school learning everything that they need to learn to eventually run their family's like mafia or crime organization. She also has the Underworld series. Now, this one, I've only read the first book. I haven't read the rest of the books, but I would, so I read Ivan. I would definitely recommend reading Ivan and then reading Snow. Snow is the second book. I would say read Brutal Birthright first, then read from the Underworld series, Ivan and Snow, and then go into Kingmaker series. Just because you will see, or there will be mentioning and crossover for Ivan and Snow in the Kingmaker series. So that's definitely, you want to read those 2 at least before going into the series. Now, besides Sophie Lark, I also would recommend J.J. McAvoy. This one is a Ruthless People series, and I loved it. This was a lot more different than the other ones in that the woman, so you have a hero and heroine, and obviously, And she, the main female character, she's been secretly running her dad's mafia business. Now, people don't know that. He's very much the head of the mafia, but she's actually the one doing everything behind the scenes without anyone knowing it. Now, they do arrange her marriage to a rival mafia just to kind of basically strengthen them. And also because her dad figures, you know what, I'm really weak, I'm really sick, I'm gonna pass away, and I want to make sure that you're taken care of, even though I know you don't need someone to take care of you. It's just smart business to, you know, form alliances with another mafia family. And so the hero though is thinking, oh great, I get even more territory, more power, and like, sure, I get a wife, but whatever. Like, she's kind of like an afterthought for him, until he ends up finding out very early on she's not just, you know, gonna stay there on the side for you, because she's actually been running this whole organization behind the scenes. And so he's kind of like, wait a second, like, I did not sign up for this, but also, dang, she's hot and she's smart and she's a badass. Like, what, like, and this is my future wife type of thing. And so they're bumping heads from the very beginning, because she's like, like, this is not what you think this is gonna be. Like, we are equals, we're both going to be running this. It's not just you, it's gonna be both of us running this. And actually this whole series just follows them two, which I think sometimes you can think, oh my god, it might be like too much of one couple, but trust me, it's not. It is great. I loved it. I was like inspired by her to be like, dang, like, she's so cool, like, I want to be cool like her. And so I just, yeah, I feel like I sound like such a nerd by saying that, but yeah, I definitely recommend Ruthless People by J.J. McAvoy. 4 books, you fly through them like this, and the spice is perfection. I also recommend the Boston Underworld series by A. Zavarelli. This one, it's basically different members of the organization, but there's also like a strip club that everything is tied into. So there is some of the guys that have a romance with some of the women who work at the strip club, and so that's basically where these go. And you do get a little bit of everything. There's some, like, it is a little bit more heavier in some of them, so I would definitely recommend, actually, for all of these books, it's Mafia. Look up triggers, okay? Just look them up. Doesn't hurt. Look them up. See if it's something that you want to read. There's a lot of dub con. You find out a lot of like essays going on behind the scenes that people don't know about. So check your triggers. But the Boston Underworld series, I read all those books. I really like them all. And then you have J.T. Geisinger with her Queens and Monsters series. You have Ruthless Creatures, Carnal Urges, Savage Hearts, and Brutal Vows. I absolutely loved this series. So in this one, it's pretty unique because it's very, very different from the other ones as well. Where in the first book, you have a girl whose fiance basically went missing the day before the wedding, right? It's been 5 years. They think he's dead. Oh well. Now she hasn't gotten over it. She's dated here and there, but she hasn't committed just because she has like all this like trauma and fear, right? Which, understandable. But just one day she randomly meets this like stranger at a bar, and he ends up being her next door neighbor, coincidentally. Like, he just bought the house next to her, and they end up kind of having some run-ins here and there, and she ends up starting a relationship with him, but she ends up finding out that there's more to her fiance's disappearance than she knew, and he might have some of those answers. That's all I'll say. I don't want to spoil it, but that's the first book. So then you have the second book, which is Carnal Urges, and this one is the best friend of the heroine from the first book and the head of the Irish mob. Now, she actually ends up getting kidnapped, and she is not reacting the way that somebody that was kidnapped would be. So she's actually throwing jokes. She wakes up on a private jet, and she's just like trying to hit on the guys and flirting with them, and the guys are kind of like, why are you freaking out? Like, you just got kidnapped. She's kind of like, so where are we going, type of thing. And so she very quickly ends up hitting it off with the head of the Irish mob, and it is so funny because she's so like not what they expected, and she's very good at like manipulating these men that are supposed to be watching her and like being strict with her, and you have them like bending over backwards to like accommodate her even though she's like their captive. So it was funny. And then you have Savage Hearts, and this one you have a captor-captive romance, except she ends up getting taken by this like rival mafia guy, right? And she gets shot in the process of her being kidnapped, and so he basically nurses her back to health. And when she kind of finds out where they are, they're like in a whole other country. They're in Russia, and she was in the US, and she's kind of like, what the heck? But she doesn't really mind because her captor is very like intriguing to her. So she's very much taken by this guy, and this guy's supposed to be this ghost. People don't even really know that he exists. They don't know what he looks like. They know that he exists, but like he'll only make himself known if he wants you to know that he's there. And that makes sense. So that was the third book. That one was okay. Still rated a 5-star, but it was more like 4.5, you know, if I'm being like strict. But then you have Brutal Vows. I loved Brutal Vows. This is the fourth book, and this one is with Spider. That's his nickname, or like his mafia name, and he is the second in command for the head of the Irish mob, who is the main hero in the second book. So this one you have Spider, and you have Reina. Reina is in the Italian, like part of the Italian mafia, and so it is an arranged marriage between Lily, who is Reina's niece, and Spider. Now Spider has had his heart broken, and he's like, listen, we need an arrangement with the Italians, so sure, I volunteer. I will marry this girl. I don't care. I'm not trying to be in love with her. I'm doing it for us and for, you know, our organization to like stay strong and keep growing. And so they're basically trying to talk him into not doing it, because they're like, no, you don't have to do this. Like, we can get another soldier to marry her. And he's like, no, I'll do it. Because again, he's heartbroken, and he feels like he owes it to his organization to like volunteer himself. Now, the only problem is that when he meets Lily, he's like, okay, cool, Lily, whatever, I guess you and I are gonna get married. But he doesn't have that same reaction to her aunt, Reina. And he's kind of like, wow, this like sexy woman who is like basically killing me with her eyes, but like he's so intrigued by her, and she is a widow, and he's kind of like just really interested in her, but he has to marry Lily. He's not going to cause drama, he's not going to cause problems, but things don't turn out the way that they think, and Reina and Spider end up having to spend a lot more time together than they originally planned. Now Reina does have this reputation for being like a husband killer, because her husband mysteriously died and people think it was her, so they call her the Black Widow. And his nickname being Spider, like, it's just like, it's funny, like it's kind of ironic. But anyway, the spice, god, it was so good. And Spider, like, he's such a lovable character. He really is. And you followed him already since like the second book. You've already seen him, like you've seen him in the second, the third. So when it finally gets to his book, you're just like cheering him on, and you're like, go Spider, go get your girl, you got this type of, you know, energy for him. So we love that for him. And then let's see, the last one that I have here as a recommendation is Danielle Laurie, and it is her Maid series. In this one, you get enemies to lovers, arranged marriage, and opposites attract. Now, I know that I'm not going too far into detail with these books, but to be honest, I feel like less is more when it comes to Mafia books, because there's only so much. Like, Mafia books are pretty similar because they all have crime. There's always things going on. A lot of them are arranged marriage. So I feel like the less that you know, the better jumping into these books. But I would again recommend looking into your triggers. See if it's something that you definitely don't want to read. There's no one to blame for that. Just don't read it. You know, it's okay if it's not for you. But yeah, those are the Mafia book recommendations that I have for you. If you're gonna give them a try, please let me know. If you have any more Mafia book recommendations, please let me know, because I'm also always looking for some good Mafia books. But thank you so much for sticking around. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.